Welcome to Insight Builder channel. How to set up CrewAI memory and how to make the agents to remember. Part 11 of multi-part CrewAI series. Discussing 5 different memories in CrewAI and using them. Okay, so what are the 5 different memories that we are talking about? In case of agents, there has to be a way where the past conversation, the present context, and a very long history of whatever the user has been doing with the agents has to be recorded somewhere. These 3 things are the short-term memory, temporarily stored, long-term memory, which is kept for a long duration for a user, and then comes the entity memory, which tells the main aspects or the subjects that the user has been discussing. It could be the file names, it could be the places, it could be the technologies, it could be hundreds of different entities that has been extracted by the model, and it has been stored separately as a separate data. All these 3 memories are mixed together, and that's where the context memory comes into picture. This contextual memory is not under our control. It's the mixture that is done by the CrewAI algorithm at the backend to build the memory using short-term, long-term, and entity memory. Finally, we have user memory. So this user memory is user-specific memory that you can store it to the agent and the crew so that the agent and the crew can give a personalized experience. So that's a very brief intro on various types of memory that's available. Well, what is the purpose? So as I already mentioned a couple of times, the contextual awareness that you get from the context of long-term, short-term, and entity is phenomenal. Experience accumulation. The more you deal with the crew, the better the crew becomes because it knows what you're mainly discussing about, and also it can go back if it is required to extract the data extract the history that you have been dealing with. In fact, you can write much more complex memories on top of the base memories that has been already written by CrewAI team, and you can extend it. So we'll be looking into these things a bit, but I wouldn't be diving into the technicalities of it. Entity understanding, yes, keeping the entities, extracting the intents, and knowing the various kinds of topics, names, places, etc. is going to enhance the agent's activity. Benefits. So this is a little bit different. Like there's a purpose and there's a benefit, right? The benefit is the adaptive learning that the model is going to experience because it's going to adapt to your needs. So it's very much similar to the giving a separate experience for each of the user, and it gives enhanced personalization also. Third and most important thing is it improves the problem solving. Think about the way you ask for a particular detail and the crew realizes, or in fact remembers, that okay, you have discussed the same topic some 3 to 4 weeks back, and it's able to extract that and show it back to you. That's one of the phenomenal things that you might actually get surprised with, right? So this is the kind of benefits, the purpose, and the types of memories that you can come across in CrewAI. Well, that's all good, but how to actually set this up and how to enable these memories? You have to go through 5-step process for this. First and foremost, you need to enable the memory parameter equal to true in both agents and the crews. This is first step. You need to set the CrewAI storage directory in your environmental variable. You can do this in different ways. I will show you one of those ways in a couple of seconds. You need to provide the embedder provider and the model. You need to instantiate each of these memories, long, short, and entity memory separately. I'll be showing which module and which classes to use for this. There is a confusion when it goes to the manual that has been shared in CrewAI. It's not actually working out properly because I'll be explaining that to you in a couple of minutes. When it comes to long, short, and entity memories, the memories uses either ChromaDB or it uses SQLite 3. You cannot change these things as of now. So you cannot customize the databases or the SQL databases or the vector databases. It's already fixed as of now. Currently, there's no way to overwrite, so this is taken directly from the documentation. And then we have to use the memories in the crew. That's how the entire thing starts working. But once you enable this and start working with the crew, then the things start populating into the memory directly. You don't need to do anything. It's all done automatically by the CrewAI background activities. So agents are literally becoming the front end, as I was telling you. So you don't need to, in fact, have a front end, because you are going to just discuss whatever you want with the agents, and the agents are going to push everything to the database and pull everything back from the database, whichever way you want it. You just don't need to worry about how the things are being done, right? So, well, let us go into the discussion of the code. This code will be shared with you guys, the memory at work, and I'll be walking through a couple of important lines in this code, and also before that I would also share the way you can just a minute. Let me get into the crews, go into the crews again, and bash rc example. So this is an example bash rc file where I export the CrewAI storage directory equal to my home directory. So this is where I store my memory files. If you don't set this up, then the memory at work, this script will not work. So there are a couple of places this is required, and it took quite a while for me to find that it is required. Even though the document says that you need to set this up, I thought, okay, you don't need to set this and still it will work, but no, it doesn't. Okay, well, next we need to look at the line number 8, line number 9, 10, 11, and 12. These 5 imports are very important, and you can see here that we are simply using the long-term memory class, short-term memory class, entity memory, LTM, SQLite storage, and rack storage. These are the classes that we are using, and these classes are pretty evident once you go to the CrewAI GitHub repo and start exploring, digging through the code base. The challenge that I was facing was a little more different. Okay, let's go down. You can also see that I have been trying to dig through the source of rack storage to understand the rack storage implementation in a more deeper fashion. Those things really help me to nail down how to enable the long short entity memories in the below crew. The embedder is a simple dictionary where I give the provider, the model, and the dimension. So this is the embedder that you need to provide. There are different embedders available. You can check it out in the documentation. Again, the documentation gives a lot of information on the embedders, but they miss this point. Probably the documentation will get updated, or probably I will do a pull request on this. I'm thinking of that. Let's look at the data directory. Okay, this data directory and the data directory that I am talking about in the crew storage DAR, these two are different. The data directory that I refer here, that is for long-term SQLite database. Okay, but for actual short-term entity memories, etc., you need to have a different data directory altogether. So keep this in mind, and let us go down. So before we even start working on this, we need to create a crew with the memory. And here I have used a function where calling this function will create the entire memory and also the crew, and return the crew to me for working on it. Here I am starting to work on the memory, the long-term SQLite memory storage. This is a pretty straightforward memory storage. I just have to give the database path. So this is the path where long-term memory.db. So this is the point where the memory will get stored, right? Also, one more thing that I found out is, if I give both data_dar and the CrewAI storage DAR, the CrewAI storage DAR will override the data DAR. So keep this also in mind. right? So next what we are going to do is, when we are going to initiate the agents, we need to call we need to enable the memory parameter to true. That simple. You have to just enable it to true. You don't need to do anything in the agent. So both the agents are enabling it into true, and then comes the interesting part. See, what happens is, in case of the short-term memory and the entity memory, if you go to the GitHub repo, there will be a lot of parameters or attributes that you can provide. But only two attributes you need to be really concerned about. One is the storage, which has to be a rack storage with the type name. So the type should be short-term for short-term memory. And the embedder config is the config that I showed above, right? The dictionary. And then the entity memory should be rack storage again, and the type should be entities. So this I came to know from the documentation. That's it. That's the only difference. You cannot give the path, you cannot give the any other configurations in this entity memory and the short-term memory. If you give, then it will actually throw an error. Even though it doesn't make sense immediately, the path is automatically created based on this line number 5, based on the CrewAI storage directory environmental variable. So this is the directory that the short-term memory and the entity memory look for when they want to place the file somewhere. That's all you guys have to understand, right? And this has been tested, so you guys can actually use this code directly. The rest of the tasks are pretty similar, not much of a difference. This is just going to research and write the task. And here comes the importance. So in 92 to 95, we are enabling the memory and we are assigning the long-term, short-term and entity memories in the crew. So that is how the memories are assigned, and after that it's all similar to how you work on other crews. It's a pretty straightforward process. And here I am kicking off the crew. The point I wanted to make is I'm not kicking off the crew here because it's going to call the LLM, but I can show you that this executes. So if I go into building crews, and if I do Python memory at work, so you'll see that it's able to build all the memory and it's able to connect to it, and the crew gets returned to us, where you can start interacting with the crew. And you can see that crew execution started message, or the printout is coming out, and this is from here on line number 105. You can see there's a print statement which is after the function call to create crew with memory. And so that's something that I wanted to show you in the execution side. But now there is more. So let us go back. As I told you that in case of the databases, it uses SQLite and also it uses Chroma backend. If you want to actually see how the things are working out in the backend, you can very well do that. So let us go to the folder where the crew storage. So you remember this crew storage, right? So let me do the pwd right now so that you can see the path. So this is the path that I have fixed on my bash RC. So you can see this path, right? So this is the same path. Well, here if you do an ls right now, you will see that there is a task outputs.db. So this is one of the important databases that keeps track of the tasks, and there is entity database short term, and both of these databases. If I need to look into these databases, pretty simple. There is something called as database DB browser for SQLite. There is a web version of this tool also, so you can search for it, and it's one of the phenomenal tools that is available. You can open these databases and you can just click on it, and the databases gets populated. You can look at the database structure. You can see the tables that is available, the long-term memories, and the SQLite sequence. You can look at the variety of columns that is present. Now if I go back to my home folder, and if I go into CrewAI storage and enter into task outputs, so you will see that there is a table with let us kick off task outputs. There is a clear details of the task ID, the output, the index, the inputs, and the timestamp. Well, That's how the entire process works. So you can see the entire details of the output of what is happening, what task was getting called, what was the raw data, and the whole detail is getting stored. You can see that this agent, the shell script writer and executor, this was one of the examples that I worked quite some time back when I was making this video. So the details are stored here. Let us go back and try some other entity memory, and if I open this, you'll be surprised there is going to be a lot of tables. Yeah, there are a lot of tables inside the entity memory database as well as the short-term memory database. Both the tables look very similar, right? I'm not going to dive into any of the technicalities of what exactly happening here. Okay, that will be beyond this discussion, but you know where to look for. If you are looking for the content, if you are looking for how the configuration is happening, you know where to look for, right? How the embedding is getting stored. So everything can be seen here. So the database, tenant, default database, etc. All of these things you can actually find it out. So the point I wanted to make, again, here we saw in this brief discussion that two main things. So we saw that how to set up the memory, various memories, what kind of which classes in fact you have to import and instantiate the objects out of it for these memories, and second, what kind of environmental variables you need to set for getting these classes to work, the memory to work in fact. So I believe that this video will actually open up for you to work with the agents, CrewAI agents, in a more deeper and in a more technical fashion, because right now you must have been just prompting it, kicking off the crews, trying to work with different types of tools, etc. But with this knowledge, you will be able to build, in fact, very complex and very user-centric and give the user a feel that the agent is personalized for them. So all the best for the next projects that you might be taking it up. So take a look at this code and you will be able to do it successfully. With that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice.